it's always been, where I grew up in Indiana, which was, not like Barcelona or Madrid that has all these beautiful shops and all that. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so for me, when I look at GQ and Vogue and things, it just seemed like a totally different world. I could recognize that those were people, but they didn't look like any people I knew. They didn't dress like people I knew. Nobody that I knew went and hung out on the beach in a beautiful bikini and this and that. It was a totally, romantic idea of a lifestyle that I could not understand, that I wanted to live. And it's funny, because the same kind of romance that I felt about those photographs, that same kind of curiosity and romance, because I didn't move to New York. I started looking at GQ and probably when I was like 13 or 12, 13, 14, something like that. But I didn't move to New York until I was 22, so that's almost 10 years plus, that, my whole idea was built through just looking at these images. And I think that's why I was able to become a photographer without taking photographic classes, because I knew what a photograph should mean, how it should make you feel emotionally. And that's kind of that was my entry to it. But then, as I got into it a little bit more, it was really about the craft. And that's why in my site, I never really talk about product. A lot of the other street style sites or personal style sites talk very much about product. And, I love fashion and I love style and crafts. And because I love it that way, in the way that I do, it's not so much about product. It's not so much about, this is Prada and it'll make you this way or whatever. To me, Prada is, a genius designer who's incredible at mixing genre and mixing colors and putting together these separate pieces. So to me, talking about it is just product almost does a disservice to it. But when I was in college, I took tailoring and dressmaking and pattern drafting. I was very lucky though that I could tell that I didn't have what it would take to become a designer. I could look at my own work, and at that time that was in the mid-'80s, and Armani was at the very top, and he was my absolute hero. And I could look at it and just go, this just all looks like cheap Armani knockoff. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something important. Even at that age, I knew I wanted to do something important, but I didn't know what it was, and I definitely didn't think it was going to be as a photographer. But because I didn't want to be a photographer, I think that's why I had a much more open point of view. I was able to create my own style because I wasn't too influenced by anybody else. Photography and like fashion or cooking or anything else, it's a process, and it doesn't have to be a complicated process. It can be very, very, very simple, but you've got to come up with some kind of point of view to separate yourself. And I think somehow I was able to figure out how to take those kind of elements of how I shoot that would create a look that the same way a designer would or a chef would create a kind of way, a culinary way of creating a kind of recipe. And so that's what it is. Fashion for me is much more about craft and design. Even, one of the things I'm happy with the site right now is, when I was given the opportunity to start going to the fashion shows and having a very, very good seat, I couldn't help but start to shoot the runway shows because, I love going, to me it's not just about the street and it's not about the street over the runway. To me it's really a supplement. The two really supplement each other. And so when I was able to start shooting on the runway, the looks, I was shooting it in the romantic way that I see it, in the artistic way that I see it. So I don't show every look, I don't show the full look. But for me and I hope that what the audience gets from that is starting to look at shows in a different way. Not as just product, but as an artistic statement of proportion or color play, or someone like Dries Van Noten, who's a genius at mixing genres. Eskimo with firefighter. I love that kind of crazy combination. And so again, you know, hopefully that's what people will start taking away from that, is when I start adding more runway pictures, not just the fashion of what they can or can't afford, but really looking at it for what it really is as an artistic statement. Sorry, that was a very long answer.